Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
You've seen Bryan Kohberger in court, and you've seen that selfie collection of his, but now we are getting a look at him behind bars like we haven't seen before. I'll explain, and better yet, I'll show you. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Bryan Kohberger is in prison in Idaho's maximum security institution. He's inmate 163214. He spends most of his days in his cell, despite being allowed 1 hour per day of rec time outside, but we're told he doesn't really do that. Kohberger is now 31 years old and is serving 4 consecutive life sentences for the horrific murders of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. We've talked about their senseless murders so many times here on Crime Fix, and we've shown you what I called that famous porch photo so many times that I can't even count. It was taken hours before the 4 were stabbed to death in the house on King Road. They were having fun before the big football game. They're frozen in time, and then evil walked into their home off campus and stole their lives. Their murders were a whodunit. The investigation went on for weeks, you'll recall, and it appeared there were no leads. But there was one clue left behind that would lead to a suspect, a K-bar knife sheath with the U.S. Marine Corps emblem on it. Testing on that sheath would later reveal a single source male DNA profile on the leather strap. We now know that DNA came back to Bryan Kohberger, the Washington State University PhD student studying criminology. A SWAT team in Pennsylvania arrested Kohberger at his parents' home in Pennsylvania days after Christmas in 2022. A lawyer representing him released a statement saying he hoped to be exonerated. We see how that worked out. Kohberger was flown to Moscow, Idaho to answer to the charges and booked into the Latah County Jail. He made his first court appearance in Latah County on January 5th, 2023. I remember it very well. I was there. And you see, Ann Taylor was there with Bryan Kohberger. She represented him throughout the case until the end. Notice that blazer she's wearing. It's black and white. You'll see it again in a moment. On that same day in January 2023, investigators with the Idaho State Police paid Kohberger a visit at the Latah County Jail. They wanted to take photos of him head to toe for the investigation. We now have those photos. It isn't uncommon to take photos like these. This one shows Bryan Kohberger in his orange jail jumpsuit issued by the Latah County Jail. And then one mostly shows Kohberger's lower body in that same orange jumpsuit. We're going to get into why a photo like this one would have been taken here in just a moment. Other photos show Kohberger's hands, which look incredibly red. We know he had a habit of washing his hands obsessively. The reasoning behind that can be debated. His lawyers have said he suffered from obsessive compulsive disorder. And this next one kind of catches you by surprise when you first see it. It's the back of Bryan Kohberger's legs without those orange pants on. He's also kicked off his jail slippers for that photo. All right, so to talk about these photographs from January of 2023, I want to bring in Chris McDonough. He is a retired homicide detective, also the host of The Interview Room on YouTube, a great show, and also a member of the Cold Case Foundation. So they investigate a lot of crimes. Chris, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you very much.
To you.
It's going to be fun.
This is going to be fun, fun in a horrible kind of way. But what I'm interested in talking with you about specifically, first of all, we've got a lot to talk about, including some new records we just got from Washington State University. But first, let's talk about these photos that were taken by Idaho State Police on January 5th of 2023. What I find interesting about these photos is the fact that they're taken so long after the crime was committed, and yet they're doing this, in my estimation, to look for any potential injuries to Bryan Kohberger's body. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, if you look at these photos, this is what they would call, a full workup, right? And what you want to do is, well, two things. You want to first, get any kind of photographs you can as soon as you can. And in this case, it was just right after the arrest. It should have been done, quite frankly, in Pennsylvania when he was first arrested. It should have been done that day. And then what typical protocol would have been to put him in a paper suit or something to that effect. Take his clothing, get the photographs, put everything in bags, etc. Because there are some significant injuries that you can visibly see on this set of photos that you have.
Let's go ahead and put some of these up on the screen. I'm gonna start with the first photo in the batch, and really the first photo, shows Bryan Kohberger's legs. We know that they unclothed him all the way, but of course they didn't release those photos to us. That would be a violation of his privacy. But we do see Bryan Kohberger, the back of his legs. They released that to us. I don't see any injuries there, but they have to document his entire body. I mean, they probably even took pictures of the bottom of his feet, if we're being honest.
Correct. Yeah, they have to document everything. And to your point, exactly. I mean, you're 30 days into this potentially, or at least close to it, post homicide, and so you've got to take that into consideration if there was any bruising or anything like that. So the significance of these kind of overall body photographs is you're looking for wounds that are healing, potentially because a knife was used, and what you're going to see is that wound in the process of recovering itself, and then you can get a doctor who can opine medically what the potential sequence of when that wound may have occurred.
We believe these were taken on January 5th of 2023, the same day as his initial court appearance, and we believe that because of the blazer that Ann Taylor is wearing. I see his arm here. I see what could possibly be a little bit of a bruise. I'm not really sure. But I mean, these photographs are almost 2 months out from the crime. Is there anything in this photo that stands out to you?
No, I mean, you can see what appears, in this up near the clavicle right there where the arm comes together at the shoulder blade. That it appears to be some discoloration, and that would be, a bruising or a subdural, what they call it, a subdural, bleed underneath potentially. But to your point, these are 2 months out. So he could have had that could have happened at any time and may not necessarily be connected to the homicide. So that's why it's important to start focusing on not necessarily the extremities because of time, but the hands and those types of things. There's another bruise right there's a good example.
Yeah, this is picture number 3. The first one, there was number 2 before that. I want to talk about the hands. The hands are interesting to me for many reasons. The hands are very, very red. We know that he was wearing those gloves consistently after the commission of the crime. Because we saw it in the reports. We see it when he's at the BMV. We're going to look at that here in a little bit too. But the hands, this is picture 5. This is his arms. The fingernails are incredibly white. We're going to get to that in a second. And there's Ann Taylor's, that black blazer with the white decoration, same one she was wearing at that hearing in the background.
Go back to that other picture just a second ago there. Okay, so look on the bottom right, towards the bottom of that near his elbow.
8.
Yeah, it looks like a gouge into the skin of some sort. Okay, I can't tell if that's a bruise or if that's a gouge. That would be consistent with fingernails. Somebody, scratching or pulling at you. And, again, it goes back to when that particular mark, you'd have to have a doctor say, okay, well, yeah, it's in, this process of healing. Okay. And so you have to ask yourself, did it get infected? Is it possible, that is a fingernail? If you see like it's an indentation into the skin.
We also, I want to talk more about the hands. I think the hands are very important here.
Yeah.
And I don't, we have more arm shots here. These are pictures 9, 10. We're on 10 now. And then we have picture 11. The hand.
That's a really important picture.
And explain to me why this is such an important picture. The fingernails are unbelievably white, the nail beds. And then, his fingernails are kind of long for a man, I think. I don't know. And then he's got that interesting kind of a mark on the index finger that appears to be healing. Talk to me about why that's important.
Yeah, so that in of itself could have been a cut during the altercation that is still in the process of healing. That right there would be, in my opinion, out of all of these photographs, the most significant piece of evidence, because you can tell that wound in of itself appears to be, continuing into the healing process. It's not gone, which could explain why post-incident the guy's running around town with gloves on. Okay, the hands in of itself, the blood that's settling in his hands. I don't know if he has some type of a blood thinner problem or anything like that, but that could also be consistent with excessive bruising during the altercation, and it would take maybe he broke some blood vessels in there while punching or something to that effect, or using. This is his weak hand, though, because if he's right hand dominant, this is his weak hand. That tells us then that if he's striking and his left hand is getting in the way, that could explain, the type of knife the type of wound that could have accidentally he hit himself, which is not inconsistent with, the frenzy type of attack we saw at the crime scene.
Well, what I'm thinking here, Chris, since this is the left hand and, you're the expert here, but this is my thought process. Kaylee, poor Kaylee, we know that she had teeth broken. It sounded like her head was heavily damaged. And if he was not anticipating her in the bed and only anticipating Maddie, and he was surprised by seeing her, he could have had the knife in the dominant hand, the right hand, and then looking to injure her in other ways with the left. And we know that he had a background in some type of boxing or what have you. So there could have been, I've heard people theorize the K-bar was used, to harm Kaylee in different ways while he was holding his hand. But however, I'm wondering if the knife is in one hand and he's doing things with the left as well. That's my thought.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I believe that he approached them from the right side edge of the bed and immediately, took out, Maddie. And then he had to lean over Maddie because there's evidence that they were both kicking. And so in my opinion, I agree with you that she would, or he would consistently he'd have to use both hands to control both of these victims. But if we look at the wounds on Madison, those are very brutal, very fast. And so Kaylee, who's against the wall, is now in what is called a control position for the suspect, because he's trapped her against the wall. And so it's an all-out fight. And so that means he would have to lean over Maddie to get to Kaylee. And that's why in some of this case, you see this sporadic frenzy where even in, Ethan's room, where he's stabbing the bed, okay, because he's losing control in that environment. And so I would suspect immediately when he's attacking her, he's losing control. And that's why the knife sheath is found underneath, one of the victims, because there is this excessive fight taking place. And that cut on that hand potentially is, in the healing process, and the bruising could be, to your point, that he's clutching her or choking her because there's evidence that she was choked or gagged of some sort. So maybe he's sticking his hand over her mouth, and maybe that's a bite mark. Maybe that's a tooth that, she sticks it in her mouth and she bites him. Okay. Any of that is possible. And so it also would have been necessary, for this photograph, just to say you did it, is to do a buccal swab on that injury in of itself to see if there was ever anything. The odds are very low that far out, but you still have to do it as an investigative measure to take it off the plate.
Sure, of course. And that was photo number 11. We have other photographs of his wrists and arms. I still think he may have been wearing, the gloves around town to cover up any injuries and to any DNA, of course, as well. This would be his right hand. I'm not seeing anything remarkable here, but maybe you'll see something that I don't see.
Well, I mean, this could be just from blood that has obviously settled into that right hand because the body's trying to heal it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he has a blood disorder of some sort. Obviously, I'm not a medical doctor, but if you look underneath the thumb, it's not. It looks like there's still excessive bruising underneath the thumb. So it's not only on the top of the hand, it appears to be underneath the hand as well. So I would like to see a photograph of him holding his hands up like this, okay, to show us what's on the inside of his hands.
Yeah, and this is photo 14. We see more photographs of his arms. I don't see anything totally remarkable there. This is photo 16. We have his bicep area again, and then the forearms in photo 17, photo 18 again.
If you look at 18 on his inset here to his forearms, you can see what appears to be a scar from what we would call track marks. Remember that he had a heroin addiction.
Right.
Years ago. So if you look at his left arm there, you can see what appears to be an anomaly of the skin, higher than the rest of his skin. And that could be indicative of potentially that was his injection sites through his heroin use.
We're going to move on now to photo 19. That's just a closer shot of that same arm. Photo 20, just another view of Bryan Kohberger. This is his right arm, and I see, what could be like maybe some freckles and things of that nature. And then we have photo 21. Are these just reference photos? This is what we did. We're documenting because the rest of these photos, Chris, show him in his jail jumpsuit.
Okay. Yeah, and you can see it. I mean, it clearly says Latah County Sheriff's Office on his right leg, Latah CSO.
And we have photos 23, 24, and 25. And these, there's nothing, I don't see anything remarkable here. I remember reading in some of the reports that he had scratches. Some people had noticed scratches on his face after the event, slight scratches. But, it didn't seem totally remarkable. I see nothing here. Also, too, I thought that there was somebody saying in one of the reports a while back that he had injuries on his hands, and he told somebody he was in some type of car accident. So that could be those healing wounds that we saw just a short time ago.
Right.
I wanted to kind of pivot now to something that I thought was very interesting, and we've gotten some new records from Washington State University, and this is about the officers involved in this case finding Bryan Kohberger's car when a bolo was sent out in late November. 2 officers queried it, and one, actually drove to the apartment and laid eyes on the vehicle. But apparently they didn't call it in. This is the story, when I talked to Chief Jenkins way back when, that oh, it wasn't the right year in the Bulos, so we didn't call Moscow and say we saw it. Now we have an email where Chief Jenkins is congratulating and commending in January of 2023 after the arrest for them finding the vehicle. But they never called it in, so precious time was potentially lost there in the investigation. What do you make of this email, Chris?
Well, I think you and I talked about it, Angenette, on a previous show with you. That was, in my opinion, a huge investigative mistake, and it wasn't just a mistake in terms of we didn't call it over. Okay, the officers did their job. They found the car. They went to the car. Okay, somebody made a command decision that said, well, don't contact the owner of that car. All right. And then they tied into that decision in my opinion, a nonsensical excuse for, well, it was the wrong year. Okay. Well, okay, then what did the BOL get correct? We're looking for a white Hyundai, okay, in the area, anything in the area, okay, around the potential time of the crime. We're to presuppose that Washington State University didn't also look for video about that car on the night of the crime in that email, okay? And so what's the chief doing, in my opinion? He knows they made not only a huge mistake, but they blew it because they could have had, and I hate to say this about any law enforcement, I back the blue when we're right, and I also tell it when we're wrong. Okay, that's our responsibility to the public, and this chief owes it to the public and to the family to say, you know what? Not only did we make a mistake, you're right. We should have gone and knocked on that guy's door, who was registered to that vehicle, living in that apartment complex, because God forbid, after that night, if he would have killed somebody else, that chief would have been really in big trouble in the long run. And so somebody made a command decision that said, okay, you got the car, you got a car that matches. Yeah, is it white? Yeah, where is it? It's here. Okay, find out who owns it, interview that person, and send it to Moscow. That was the appropriate protocol.
Chris, let's turn now to this video of Bryan Kohberger at the BMV. And this is 5 days after the homicides. He's there to change his license plates. And he's new to Washington State, so his birthday is coming up. So I'm not going to say he's doing this because of the homicides. But he's there and he's very casual with these people, and his attorneys had said, he has Asperger's and he can't, he's not good with people and he'd make a terrible witness and all of this stuff. But let's just play a little clip of this and see what we think of him.
So you're from New York. How you liking it over here?
I'm actually from Pennsylvania.
Oh, you're from Pennsylvania. Oh, yes. And then you were...
Yeah, my family's from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
So my mom
watching
the Yankees all the
So
time.
that's how you, yeah.
That's why I rubbed off. Otherwise, you would think I'd be a Phillies fan.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, growing up in the Bay Area, my grandma and my dad were huge Giants fans, so it was just falling in the family line.
Yeah, same here. I like all that stuff. I do a bit more hiking than camping.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up necessarily going camping. So my parents
either come in and do
so
that,
I
Yeah.
don't really know how to do that.
Yeah. It can be a bit intimidating, but just even the day hikes are really nice. I like going to Elk River over in Idaho. They have the falls. It's like a couple mile hike, but when you get to the upper, middle, and lower falls, so it's really pretty.
Elk River.
Super fun, yeah.
I've
Elk
heard of
River.
that actually.
Yeah, Elk River, Idaho. And they've got a reservoir there in town and that you can hike around. It's just there's just so many little areas in that one area, place alone. And then we also go up, Coeur d'Alene has a lot of beautiful hiking areas.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, if you're ever looking for a place, I suggest those areas because they're super fun.
Yeah. I actually like more green, right? So I know Spokane is a little bit more green.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not green.
Chris, he seems very casual, very comfortable making small talk. not as awkward as his attorneys made him out to be in these motions hearings. What are your thoughts about this video?
Well, the most striking thing here is this is what we would call post-incident behavior. Okay. And it helps us understand that, mind you, at this point, this guy's a serial killer. Okay. He's killed 4 people. Okay. And for him, that release of all of that tension in the crime scene, okay, almost makes him feel, like he knows internally that he's done something extremely, horrific. But for him, that was a conquer. Okay, it was a situation for him that built up for a long time. Remember the buildup, constantly going back to the crime scene, where they've got him on cell towers and the surveillance aspect of everything that this guy was doing. And now the crime goes down. The fantasy's been exposed, i.e. he's accomplished the goal. He's beat the hell out of those victims. He's slaughtered them, extensively. For him, that's a conquest. It's almost like, I've shot the lion on the Serengeti. Okay. And so this is what we call post-incident behavior. And notice he is charming. He has this chameleon part of his personality with some type of familiarity in relationship to, he's trying to create, a bridge in the conversation. Oh, I like the outdoors. I like this. I like that. Okay. And he's trying to relate that back to, this gal. But what he doesn't tell you, remember the photographs of the places that he was visiting were the exact Cascade Mountains where Ted Bundy was visiting. Okay, where he was taking these selfies with, Ted Bundy's dumping ground behind him. So again, that's part of the buildup, but it's still part of his fantasy. He will never release that fantasy ever. Okay, because it's put him into a category now where he equates himself now after the homicides. Hey, I'm just like another serial killer, so I'm going to keep playing this as long as I can. And it's very deceptive. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And we see that behavior, exposing itself 5 days after slaughtering these 4 victims.
It's something. It's really something. I mean, he seems like a guy you could just chat with. I mean, he really does.
Yeah, and that's how they are, by the way.
Yeah.
Literally.
Chris McDonough, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Now, the most important people in this case, every time we talk about this case, we need to remember who matters and who's most important. That's Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. Remember them and their families. That's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.